the head of open innovation for GM, Ted Graham. First, some supporters to thank, and thank you for listening. This episode is supported by CCW Digital, leaders responsible for operations, information technology, contact centers, customer care, service, and support are invited to register for a free CCW Digital membership. Membership includes networking with 100,000 plus qualified industry professionals, quarterly executive research reports, product matchmaking, and more. Go to ccwdigital.com to join the community. This episode is also supported by the CCW Conference and Expo. The event will empower you to test, learn, and try the next big thing in customer experience optimization. Are you interested in mining data across touch points for personalized and predictive data? Are you trying to integrate your systems to get a more complete view of the customer? Are you figuring out what innovations to invest in? Chatbots, virtual assistants, AI, VR, biometrics, to name a few? Go to callcenterweek.com to register. Ted Graham joins us from C2 to discuss doing new and different things as it relates to the company, the industry, the brand, and general society. Regarding self-driving, hands off the wheel or assisted driving experiences are on the table for 2017. Full automation will be here sooner than you think, in Ted's words. He's interested in explainable AI, which ensures that the work of any machine or deep learning is shown or explainable to humans. Ted is focused on creating a more immersive, complete experience for the consumer, which includes his automotive company being a part of your human experience beyond the car. It begs the question, how does your internal automation redefine what your brand does and who your brand serves? Welcome to CCW Digital on B2B IQ. I'm your host, Seth Adler. Download episodes on ccwdigital.com or through our app in iTunes, within the iTunes podcast app, in Google Play, or wherever you currently get your podcasts. The head of open innovation for GM, Ted Graham.
My father owned one share of General Motors in like 1957. I'm not being hyperbolic. You know what I mean? And then now we've got open innovation right there at GM.
You know, and it's not necessarily brand new to companies generally. Procter & Gamble did this with the spin brush, was famously invented outside of Procter & Gamble, but came in and commercialized, a huge success for them. Mm-hmm. So it's not unknown to companies like ours, but in an industry where if you didn't grow up in the big three, you really didn't have a lot of credence. But you know, here we are investing and acquiring in companies like Cruise Automation out of the Valley. The founder of that company was an entrepreneur on something called Twitch, which was around live streaming.
Sure, huge.
Gamers, right?
Huge win.
Huge industry, and a huge win for him. And his next company suddenly is, you know, what we need in terms of advancing this sort of self-driving future.
Let's dive right in. What is it?
So, you know, self-driving generally, to understand, is this notion of how are we solving for the problem for preventable human errors in driving? Mm-hmm. So each year, you know, we've got an unacceptable number of deaths. And, you know, if you understand sort of one of the leading causes of death amongst teenagers is in this sort of distracted driving scenarios, got their phone out, texting. You can't have a fine high enough to have them put it in the trunk and put it away.
That's right. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to what you were talking about. I was texting.
And that's the thing. And so the faster we get into, we've always had active safety programs where the car might be able to take over for you in incidents like backing up. A dog comes out in the back, a ball rolls out. It will take over for you and brake for you. Like nobody wants to be sort of in that incident where in a preventable death that, you know, the technology could have stepped in. And so this is just elevating it up to a point where could we take that commute that most people find as drudgery and just change the whole model, change it into maybe a productive experience? Maybe you get your rowing machine in there in the future. I'm not talking necessarily about those country rides that you love to still take. And,
sure.
You know, if I'm in Ireland or Cape Breton where I'm from, I would love to have my hands on the wheel, but when we look at the sort of safety situation in these urban environments, in the drudgery of commuting, can we solve for that? Can we create a brand new experience?
Can you take us to kind of where we are today and what you're looking at which will get to us before the rowing machine on my daily commute.
Yes,
In other
yeah.
words, like what's really directly on the horizon? What are you really working on right now?
So even in 2017, this fall, you'll see things in our Cadillac brand called Super Cruise, which allows drivers to have truly hands-off-the-wheel experiences. So if you're driving another electric car company's vehicle, they'll prompt you very often, like every 2 minutes or less, to touch the wheel, just to make sure that you're paying attention. We're using other technology to monitor that observation of the road. And this is using technology to basically adjust where you are within the lane markings, not follow too closely so that you've got the sort of safe distance. So that Super Cruise is going to be available on select models of Cadillac this fall, and it is a early example of where you can see where we're going, integrating different types of technology and advancing the state of art in, I would say, assisted driving.
Okay, so assisted driving is even now, right? We're approaching now, at least. How long does assisted driving go before we are really having a conversation around driverless?
So, we
one man's opinion, of
yeah.
course.
So,
right.
The answer is sooner than you think, for sure.
Okay,
for sure.
And that's the guy from GM saying that.
Sooner than you think. Yeah, we've been looking at this from a point of view of the technology, but also the acceptance of consumers. We understand the nature of the different desires in terms of what you want out of your experience. And, our understanding of, even if you take something like 0 to 60 clock time versus can I get Wi-Fi in the car?
Right.
And you start to look at new generations of buyers, and there's still definitely that group of gearheads who want that 0 to 60 performance. But, if you're the dad going on the road trip and you can have streaming Netflix in the back seat and a happy family, that counts as a lot. So as we understand kind of that changing consumer perception of what this is, that's really informing a lot of the moves that we're making. And if you couple that with some of the demographic trends, which we watch carefully, things like, something like 60% of the world's population is going to move to urban centers by 2030. And so if you think about these dense urban centers, what kind of modality is going to make sense? And we think that there's going to be a combination of traditional driving. It's going to be self-driving, probably maybe a shared environment like a Lyft ride. But
Sure.
You may not always have a driver in the front seat.
So what about, and then we're going to be done with this part of the conversation, but of course it's the fascinating, everybody, shiny object in the room type of thing. The safety concerns seem to be around that kind of hodgepodge of driverless and assisted and totally controlled by the driver. That's where the safety concerns seem to reside. It would be much easier if we could just go all, driverless right away, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. We work with regulators all the time to understand this. We probably are coming up on having, a very respectable size fleet actually getting miles on different types of road conditions. If you've seen any of the YouTube videos of cruise automation, we drive in San Francisco during the day. At night, we're dodging raccoons. We're looking at double parked vehicles. So we are trying to test in the hardest of situations to be able to prove to both consumers and regulators and all of our partners that the pace at which you do this is important to consider how fast we are going to move with this in conjunction with understanding all of the sort of supporting technology. And, you start to get into areas like machine learning and AI, and there's a emerging thought on what's called explainable AI.
Okay.
So there's some algorithms out there.
Can you explain that?
So let me explain explainable AI. So there's deep learning as part of AI, which is this sort of, you're throwing massive data sets on it and it spits out an answer. It can't necessarily give you the rationale of why it moved left versus right, but it had enough data points to make that particular action take place. In explainable AI, where you need to be able to show to regulators and consumers, or anybody for that matter, like, why is this hunk of metal that I'm getting into doing what it's doing? That's really important for us to be able to have that conversation. So we're investing, we're researching in these areas, and we're trying to figure out, at what pace does this make the most sense? And, you may see situations, whether it's city streets or protected highways or what's called geofence locations, so specific geographic areas where you're allowed to drive, self-driving situations. I think you'll see some city-by-city decisions in terms of what makes sense for them. But, obviously you've got states like California and Michigan and, even on this side of the border in Canada, some interesting operations happening where we're seeing more and more possibilities with economic development and even just trying to create talent and logistical opportunities for manufacturers and people trying to move goods and people.
Sure. So many conversations that I have now have AI in them. And no matter how you look at it, no matter how you see it, no matter what you expect, AI is here in a very real way. Many companies have, instituted, implemented something in that area. So understanding that is here. When you say explainable AI, where are you on that path? I mean, tell us what you can tell us, but it sounds like you are, making headway there. What more can you tell us in terms of explainable AI in quotes?
Yeah, I think us and the general public are aligned on this. I mean, we're not necessarily won over by the hand waving of, hey, I've got this black box for you. Don't ask too many questions, but it just does what it does,
right.
And it works, right? And that may be enough if you are doing adjudicating for loans, right?
Sure.
If I don't necessarily have to explain to somebody why I've denied you for a loan, that's one thing.
I never have before. I don't have to now. You're denied.
Right, exactly. So when we talk to people, the researchers, the academics, the startups, about what is at stake here, that is what focuses their efforts, I believe, in terms of where we need to get to, in terms of making sure that, can I understand this on a layperson's terms? Can I understand it with a regulatory framework? Does it work within insurance models? All of these things will be important. I wouldn't say that explainable AI as a methodology has got, deep sets of, papers or a TED Talk on it quite yet, but it's coming.
Right.
And, we are actively trying to attract and work with the people who are really at forefront, because, it comes down to trust. Whether you're making a big purchase on a vehicle or you're putting your new baby in the back seat. We know that trust is such a big part of this equation, and we always joke about trusting our robot overlords, but we're not there just to kowtowing to them yet. We want to we want to verify. We definitely want to verify that they know what they're doing.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify, exactly.
So okay, so that's driverless, that's assisted, that's that area.
Yeah.
What else is coming across your desk where you're like, that's interesting?
So I love entrepreneurs who are thinking actively about connection. Okay. So connection in many different ways. We've had OnStar within our cars for a couple of decades now, and that's a rich heritage. And most people know it for the safety profile. If you're in an accident, the airbag deploys, you've automatically got a mic open to an emergency services operator who can kind of assess your situation. You can get the right type of attendance there. Save lives every single day that way. But what's lesser kind of understood is the possibilities that opens up for us as a company in terms of providing new and different services, in terms of what are the experiences that we can offer when you're on Route 66 and you're thinking about, maybe jazz is my thing tonight, and based on my mood, understanding that this person, maybe I've never heard an album of theirs, but based on my Spotify playlist, that would be an excellent choice for you to do tonight.
Right.
I'm more talking about in the realm of ideas, but there are some great thinking around how do we engineer for experiences and not just things. And I love the pitches that I hear in that area.
Interesting. And, because you're I can talk about Cadillac Ranch off of Route 66, but that's just that. Whether it's on my route or not, kind of OnStar saying, hey, are you going I can see that you're going to stop 12 miles before Cadillac Ranch. Are you going to hit that tomorrow? That type of thing.
And I can see a future even before we get in the car.
Okay.
So if I'm not driving, or if I'm have a chance of going, cross town with a friend to have dinner, you're going to get there through some modality. I mean, I think we can be somewhat agnostic about how are we helping you move and enjoy those kilometers or miles traveled. And with our partners like at Lyft and we've got a 10% stake in Lyft.
Yeah.
They've had some really interesting findings that, when they brought the cost of a Lyft line, which was a shared ride across San Francisco, at one point there was a promotion where anywhere across the city it was a $5 ride.
Okay.
No longer when you were invited out by your friends to a dinner or a show could you say no. So it wasn't just about I'm on the trip. It's like, forget Netflix and chill. I've got something you've got to experience. And, stop spending your leisure time on the couch. There's more to life.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. So all under the kind of banner of connectivity. Did I hear you say not even in the car? Were those words that you used, or did I imagine that?
So our CEO, Mary Barra, has been famously talking about connecting with the customer beyond the car. And
okay.
The reason why I joined was in large part because of Mary's position in challenging the notion of what we do as a company. So beyond the car is a really important concept for us. We've got some commercials out there now which show parents with the app, they're vacationing somewhere south and their son or daughter is out on Inspiration Point and they are sounding the horn and lights because they can see the GPS location of where their teenage children are. And, that's just, kind of one of those fun connectivity points of what we're doing there. But, there is some experiences beyond the car that we want people to think about. It's not just about, what you're doing while you're in there. We want to enable a whole set of differentiation beyond that.
So how do you see the customer? When you think about that General Motors customer, and of course it's diversified across many, many brands, but what are we really getting at as far as that customer experience, that customer management? How do you see who that is?
Well, I think we know our base of customers by our brands very well.
Okay.
Like if you look at GMC or Chevrolet or Cadillac or Buick, we know those customers very well. What we're coming to understand is a new, I would say, a generation or a new function of customers with our new Maven brand, which is into the car sharing. In one instance of Maven, we just launched in New York City last month. And you can, in LA right now, for instance, you can get a Chevy Bolt, an electric vehicle that you can use in a car sharing format as opposed to buying a car in a city like that.
Right.
So we're starting to get to know, am I a musician who needs to lug my instruments, or am I, a baker who's trying to go out and get my groceries in the morning? There is actually some interesting use cases about small and medium enterprises who are using these new brands like Maven in a way that we hadn't necessarily thought of before. Or even if you take, maybe retiring baby boomers, there's a population who wants to think about retirement in a new and different way. So, we had a program that we launched called Book by Cadillac, which allows you to do something like 18 switches a year across all of the Cadillac family of brands. So you might want a 2-seater plug-in electric one day, and you may want the full Escalade treatment another, depending on if you're going on a ski trip.
18 switches.
18 switches. White glove treatment, insurance and registration, all included in a monthly fee. And it's a whole new modality of connecting with a customer.
I got a guy for you. He's my dad. He would love that. Seriously. That's is that done? Is that out?
That's done. That's out. And one of the things that we protect with that, as opposed to, maybe with other car sharing services, you're in a different type of car each time, which isn't such a bad thing. But maybe you're used to where is the infotainment system buttons on the Cadillac? I'm used to a certain thing, and I want that, but I want to change the form factors or use case, summer, winter.
16 changes or 18 changes?
18 changes.
What's the service called?
It's called Book by Cadillac.
But I'm telling you, you got a new guy coming up at the end of the current lease.
That's good. I'm waiting to hear the feedback. So let him know we are very much open to the feedback. We're gonna continue to iterate and learn from these models.
Yeah.
We've got new experiences with Cadillac, something called Cadillac House in New York City, you'll find, where you can go in and sort of experience the brand in an urban environment in a different way. I'm going down to Manhattan in early June to experience it for the first time myself, so I'm looking forward to that.
I might meet you there. That's where I live. That's
Very good.
fantastic. I have 3 final questions for you. Quickly, though, anything else that we didn't cover that's certainly something that you're looking at that we should know?
So, we talk generally about this idea of, I call it ACEs, right? The 4 big themes that we look at for the future of mobility. Mm-hmm. And it covers A, for autonomous, or self-driving as it's more popularly known. We've talked about that.
Yep.
Connected, which we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The third being electrified, electric propulsion.
Mm-hmm.
Is continuing to be a huge important part of sort of what we look at in terms of the fleet, both in terms of reducing our sort of our footprint,
yeah.
But also in terms of the propulsion for self-driving vehicles. It makes a ton of sense for a car that's going to use that much to have an electrified system that it's based on. So our Chevy Bolt, you'll see, is the fleet for all the sort of the self-driving fleet that's out there in San Francisco right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some important changes that are going to have to happen in terms of customer understanding about the range that you can get. Like, now with this sort of new extended range, if you speak in metric, 383 kilometers, I think it's 260 miles, if I'm doing this in my head.
I'll believe you.
Yeah, but it's more than most people need, and understanding sort of where that electric takes us for the future is important. The final of ACEs is shared. So this idea of sharing models of business. How can I look into things like, if I only need access to a vehicle part of the time, can the companies and brands I trust provide that for me as well?
Yeah.
And so those are the themes I'm actively looking out for entrepreneurs to work with, and it's been a great journey so far.
All right, so email them now, right? I'm sure they can hit you up on LinkedIn, right?
On LinkedIn, great way to find me. You can find my TED Talk, which kind of outlines a little bit of my own background and sort of going and get very deep on this. I was a Uber X driver for a little while to understand how disruption might affect a regulated industry. So believe you, I live and breathe this stuff. I'm not just sort of a figurehead in an office.
Are you based in Silicon Valley or are you based in Michigan?
So based in Toronto, I travel to Michigan every single month. I'm in the Valley quite a bit too, but I will go where the ideas and entrepreneurs are, and hopefully if we find places to meet otherwise, that's also good for me too.
I love it. Rapid fire, final 3 questions.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what they
Sure.
are. I'll ask you them in order. What has most surprised you at work along the way? What has most surprised you in life? And then on the soundtrack of your life, 1 track, 1 song that's got to be on there. First things first, though. In your career, what has most surprised you at work?
So it is the feedback from people that makes you develop as a person. We used to think that, I'm going to get a degree, maybe I'll get a master's degree, maybe I'll get a PhD if, I'm really trying to do some self-abuse.
Mm-hmm.
But the learning that can take place in organizations like GM with that many smart people and brains around. I work with the brightest engineers and software developers, and I ask for feedback, and I give it every single day. And I think that's been a welcome surprise that I'm never going to stop learning as long as I keep that attitude.
Absolutely. Good advice for others as well. What has most surprised you in life?
So in life, it's this nature of being open to curiosity and where that might take you. I remember signing up as an Uber X driver when I was an executive at PwC, and I had a little bit of fear in my gut, like, what is this going to do? I'm going to pick up drunk people in my family minivan, and holy cow, what's that going to mean for all of this? But it really allowed me to sort of get out of my comfort zone, and people were just generally welcoming, and I had lots of great stories in the backseat of my car, and you know what? You got to shake some things up every time, and that's what life's all about.
That is a movie, you realize. The PwC guy driving the Uber X for research. I mean, come on.
I actually did it over the course of a year, 99 trips, and released a book called The Uber of Everything.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay.
just this fall, based in part on my experience, and all of these companies that were pitching me saying, Ted, we're the Uber of dry cleaning, we're the Uber of gentleman's care.
The Uber of
and so I still get those pitches, but now I understand them a little bit better.
And people, I would imagine, are using, we are the Lyft now, the Lyft of this, the Lyft of that.
That's right. We do still provide cars to Uber drivers. We respect them as a company, but Lyft is one we have an investment in.
A little bit more love there,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. On the soundtrack of your life, 1 track, 1 song that's got to be on there.
Geez. So soundtrack of my life, I've got this lovely wife who, somehow still knows all of these songs from the 70s, and so I usually have her songs running through my playlist, and she's my human jukebox where I'm like, sing me a song that's in your head at any moment, and it's not any one song, but it's always Stevie Nicks.
Somehow.
Always Stevie Nicks. The whole
rumors.
Right?
We'll take that.
Is great.
Yeah. The whole album.
It shouldn't be taken as any indication of sort of my professional interest, but
you love your wife.
I love my wife, and when she sings to me, I just smile inside and out.
Come on, Ted. That's the way to end it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep working.
Cheers.
This was a pleasure. Can't wait to see what's next.
Great. Thank you.
And there you have Ted Graham, really kind of getting into the consumer's mind. I used to care about 0 to 60 a lot. Now I care about Wi-Fi a lot. Some of us care about both, but the point is, consumer experience is changing. So is the way Ted looks at GM. Very much appreciate his time. Very much appreciate your time. Stay tuned.